So, recording is running. Welcome to this
Thank you.
first ever recording for the Pirate Academy. We're starting to build it, and I want to take a couple of seconds to describe roughly what we envision by the Pirate Academy in order for a first-time listener to understand why we're here and what we're talking about. Which is, we believe that it is absolutely critical for humanity to relearn how to live in local, small, self-reliant, self-sufficient communities. And we believe that because it is absolutely vital that we learn how to nurture the soil again, so we can bind carbon, we can build healthy, good relationships to be healthy human beings on a healthy planet. There is a slight chance we might also be able to do that with technology, but many people are working on that. So we don't see that as our responsibility. We want to train people to do that. And this is why we are speaking with Jussi today. Jussi is an amazing guy, but you will figure that out as while he speaks. We met a couple of years ago and throughout the years from time to time. And I remember a beautiful moment when we were sitting somewhere in Spain with some other people singing. I think it was a British folk song, something like that, right?
Yeah, I think that it was something really weird for us.
Really weird for us, yes.
But we learned it, and it was incredible moment. Yes, I remember that too.
Yes, and I learned a lot of things from Jussi. He's an extremely awake person. He notices things other people don't notice. And what I would like to start with in this conversation is to give everybody the opportunity to get a bit more of a glimpse into that. So, Jussi, why don't you share with us how your mind is configured? Why? How did that happen? How did you become who you are right now?
Thank you, Thomas, and thanks for having me to discuss. This is extremely challenging, I have to say. Like putting it just somehow structure yourself. It's difficult, but I try, and
That's why you're here. That's why you're
yeah,
here.
I think that everyone is still, even if we try not to, we are built from our history. So I need to start from the early history anyway. So I think that one thing how I usually introduce myself when it's something deeper, when it's not something, is that I remind myself and the others that before I turned 7, I moved 7 times around Finland. My father was working in border guard in an army, which meant at that time that when we were in 70s. I born in 77, so there was still this kind of a mindset of fighting Soviet Union in Finland all the time, because our grandparents were in a war, and it was so close. So we were moving around the border, so like a 1,000 kilometer in between, and something there, which meant that I always needed kind of, I went to the communities that already existed, and I somehow needed to fight my place there. I think
make new friends.
to find new friends and that kind of stuff. And I remember that we didn't end it up to a very easy place. It was close to Helsinki, but it was a small town where already everyone knew each other and so on. So kind of the school time was a bit difficult there to find a place, which somehow I think that I'm somehow built on insecurity always. But insecurity in the sense that I have been in those situations, And afterwards, actually, I have been trying to find places where I can feel unsecure in order to feel that I'm living again. And so
makes sense. Yeah.
I'm also trusting to the insecurity.
I think that's important to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. I mean, it makes you feel, you learn it, makes you feel more comfortable with the uncertain, the new, and you become unafraid of it.
Yes, you trust that you survive also in unsecure conditions. And,
very, very important.
and it's possible that I have just picked up this as my story, and the reality is something else, but I think that it has something. I think it continues also afterwards for those, because at the beginning of, I think it was 91 or something, when the economy collapsed, when the Soviet Union collapsed, because the foreign expert from Finland was highly dependent of the Soviet Union at that time. So we couldn't, like Swedish, they are extremely good marketers. Finland is not, because we didn't need to do that at that time. So it ended up that there were huge bankrupts in families in Finland, and so was in our family. So we basically lost our home and we lost our shelter at that time. And then my parents again started to move a bit more, and I kind of started to build again something secure there afterwards. One thing which I think is again related to the topics that we are discussing today is again, it comes back to this masculine war thing, what has been going on in history more than people can probably now feel, and it's kind of, we are carrying those packages still in this generation. I'm happy that my children are not anymore afraid of some big issue. They have different, but it was extremely concrete, which is actually also why we have this strange thing in Finland still, that we have a compulsory, quite long military service. I think that it's Israel and Finland. Israel, it's longer, but it's in Finland, it's only for men, and it can be criticized in many ways. And I'm also, as I was just before going to the army, I was just for 5 years concentrating to be a punk rocker and a business student. so it's kind of clashing a bit when you are going to the army. But at the same time, like the benefits of that is that it unites people and men in very challenging moments when you are there around 18 to 21. And it's not uniting it like to fight. I don't mean that, but it unites you. It kind of gives you the understanding when people are coming from a different lives, from a different parts of Finland, with the different backgrounds. You are living with them. You need to understand them. So it kind of opens and unites, and you understand that even if you are thinking that you are the city people, you are living somewhere, and then there are the others. That's a good place when that's the place where there are no others, and I think it happens with guns, and I'm not sure is it a good thing anymore, but I think that still there are these good parts. And then it's again about survival. So when we are talking about something, we are spending a lot of time in the forest during the winter, during the summer, and for weeks, which kind of brings you again under to kind of survive in the nature, and it's an experience that everyone shares. So
Finland.
Sorry.
Every man in Finland shares.
Yes, almost every man.
Okay.
Even the punk rockers, most of the punk rockers.
Well, I put peace symbols. I drew peace symbols all over my body when they drew me, or when they did the assessments to
Yeah.
signal that I'm not ready to go to any type of military.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that gave me a special psychology assessment. But they,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the only one.
Okay. Okay. It's not anymore. You can get rid of it, but I would say that it's a very strange historical thing that we still have here, which affects quite a lot actually also to the society, and not only I think that it's not only bringing this bad masculinity to the to the communities, but whatever. That was kind of the one thing that still kind of somehow shapes you, and it's again those things that you are in unsecurity situations, and then you need to trust that you will cope and whatever. After that, I needed to start to build something. Basically, the first steps to be independent after that. So I worked in corporations for I think 5 years before I had the opportunity to go to university. So I was just like doing the undergraduate. I needed money. I didn't have the opportunity just to study. And I did the undergraduates at the same time when I was already working in a international company and in a nice with the nice challenges. And then I ended up again to a new community to study in England, which was extremely good experience again, and which kind of relates also to these things that I told before, because there was in my program there was 10 people from 9 different nationalities, and that was very new for me. And again, like just seeing people coming from the different backgrounds and seeing that everyone is actually quite same. Okay, when we are like diving a bit deeper, then we understand that there is again not just we and them. So, and I think that it has affected me also quite a lot in the sense that I got this. I think before I was 20, I had been in an airplane once, and then kind of opening the world and being able to be in touch with people and to feel comfortable with strangers. It's something that is very important for me. When we met first time, I ended up in this villa in Spain where there was 100 people or 120 or something. And it was again the moment where there was a lot of insecurity because I didn't know anyone. No one. I haven't met no one. And I knew that I need to spend 3 nights and days together. and after that, the powerful experience of again like surviving and finding new friends and making stronger relationships, I think that those are the shapers of my life quite strongly.
So it seems to be a real a thread going through that, which is going into moments of uncertainty. You've said that, and also connecting with people inside of that.
Yeah, and then I think that it's about creating opportunities also. I think that more discussions you have, more connections you have. When you are doing them just so that you are enjoying of them and not expecting anything, then it opens all the time different possibilities for the future. So kind of I would say that I'm somehow a roulette player in the sense that I don't have this constant plan for doing what I'm doing for a living or how do I live my life. I kind of trust that more I open these spaces for luck, the more luck comes, and it is somehow proved that it happens like that. So you create the opportunity for things to happen.
Just one more question before we go into our main topic. You've also applied what you just said to business, right? You've built a company, and you help other organizations with exactly that, dealing with uncertainty, um, embracing it. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, so we can get a feeling about that as well?
Yeah, or actually that's Finnish word. Joo.
Ja.
That's Swedish again. Then it's
Ah,
it's
okay,
slightly
that's a
yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Ja.
Yes. So actually, now when I was explaining this, and you were asking the question, I realized that I'm kind of putting people to the same situation and then trying them to help them out from there. So now when we are building business design methods, it's all about getting enough people in a democratic way to kind of share the purpose or the vision or the rules of the community or like future social license to operate for a company or whatever, and we are doing them by designing methods and creating environments where that can be happening. So I'm tired of doing any like strategical projects which are starting from the owners or from the top management. I'm doing those still, just very I'm trying to pick those where I think that there can be something delivered, but trying to have these like a scalable things which do have a wider effect. They are probably shorter, they are probably not going to so deep, but still they are affecting to more people and so on.
I think that's really important, that a specific aspect that you decide actively to choose not to do things because you don't expect them to have impact, because your time would be invested better in something where you can have much more impact. And I think that's crucial. That's a differentiator that not many people have, because many people, probably due to the understandable problem of dealing with uncertainty, might opt for, okay, let me do this job because it gives me good money.
Yeah.
But in the end, your time cannot be measured in money. So that's
And
understanding.
I already said it when I was in a corporations that it's also a good business to make that kind of choices, because if you're doing things that you feel that don't have any effect or any impact to anything, you're getting frustrated. And then you don't anymore have the energy to do those things which do have some kind of impact. So kind of you're losing the game when you are choosing to do things that don't have any purpose. Of course, let's be realistic. Sometimes just in order to live, you need to do something which is probably not so comfortable and you are not choosing. That's for sure. But you need to fight in order to get out from there and not to feel too comfortable.
That's actually both of those aspects. So the need for doing things that are uncomfortable, that you would actually otherwise not do, but you need to do them to survive, and also to um, actively decide against things that might feel comfortable but um, don't have the desired impact. I think that's a good bridge into the depth of our conversation.
Yeah,
Um,
I want to say
yeah.
one thing, which is this comfortable. It's a um, it's kind of, you feel that you are comfortable or then you're uncomfortable. But the meaning of the word is so different for different people. When we are talking about being uncomfortable, for many, it means to me that I'm extremely comfortable in the uncomfortable situations. I mean that I get kind of everything from those. So I can't say that it's uncomfortable for me. But it is just,
Yes,
yeah.
and hard to measure. But I think we're going to go there later again. I would
Yeah.
like to focus our attention on the the core question for today. I mean, there's so many things you're involved in and so many things you're doing, and one of the things is what we want to focus on, which is the question of how do we build shelter. So if you imagine you, um, I put you somewhere on the planet, you can tell me where, with 200 people, and you have to build a community together. And you, for some reason, are the person in charge of helping the shelter, with the shelter building, organizing that, or leading that, or taking lead on that. And this is a self-sufficient, self-reliant, sustainable community. So even harder. You're somewhere in the outback, 200 people, somewhere Finland or some island, and you have to build this. What do you do? How do you do it? What do you take with you from the current model of civilization? And what things would you expect to need but actually don't need? Take some time to improvise on that question. Feel free also to flesh out where we are, what does that look like, who are those people maybe, but focus on the shelter part of it. And take whatever time you need, and then when you're done, Lars and I will start shooting our questions.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. The first extremely difficult decision is this where. Because if you're taking your community to the warm place, somewhere where there is like all around the year it's warm, the requirements for the shelter are totally different, and it's kind of easier because you don't have to have the insulation, you don't have to have the heating. You probably need to somehow cover yourself from a lot of rain in some parts, but maybe not. However, taking it to the north, taking it to the Finland or Norway or Sweden or Siberia, it's difficult because you have two totally different you have the winter, you have the summer, and the winter is the challenging one. So which means that again, you need to have something that keeps you warm. You need to have some insulation. You need to have some place where you can dry things, also dry your clothes or whatever. But at the same time, it keeps people active, which means that if you are passive, because one of the things there is that the community needs to have the purpose, and surviving is a strong purpose for everyone, especially at the beginning when you're putting things together. If you don't need to constantly take care of that, it's possible that or at least you need to find something meaningful or something else meaningful that you are doing on that time. Otherwise, there's a chance that the community gets passive.
Just a question. So you're adding the dimension of activity to the times of the year, that are activity that is possible, because if everything's covered in snow and cold, you cannot do farming, you cannot play games outside, you have to be inside of your shelter, and that adds to the complexity of building a shelter. Is that right? That's what you're saying?
But at the same time, it brings meaning.
Okay.
It brings meaning, like, for example, that you need to work constantly during the summertime in order to survive in the winter time, to have enough food and that. So I'm really not sure which is better. I'm not sure, is it better for community to have this time to meditate in the south, where you don't have to do at least that thing, or then to be isolated during the winter time in cold, in dark, and the meditation happens automatically. If you don't kill yourself before that, or start drinking, that's the question. Okay, but that's kind of just to think. But I will build this anyways because it's more familiar to me. I will build it in a Nordic environment.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is also that we have still fresh water that you can drink, where you can build next to the fresh water, which is the most important thing for life, that you will have that. The next thing is that there are areas where you can survive because there is so much things in the woods. So you can find, even without farming, the small community, if they are capable, they can live there and start building things. As a material, when you are building the shelters, the wood is only option for me. There's no other option in this situation than wood, because it is not only carbon neutral, but it is kind of a carbon bank, and that's why it needs to be built from the wood. The good thing in wood building is also that actually you don't need too much tools. You don't need you need energy, but it can be human energy to do that. You don't need different isolation things. You can just build it from the wood, and that's kind of enough. You find everything from the forest, what is needed for that, which means that you have and where you are building this shelter. So I would definitely take with me something from here, but maybe it's more like a saw and axe that are really needed to build this place.
But just to deepen the questions a little bit here, or do you want to riff on?
No, I'm thinking this through. Of course, like I explained this a bit, I came to the very practical material things there. But I think that there is, if we want to build it in the woods, even if I'm in charge of sheltering, I need to be sure that the sense of purpose is clear all the time. Otherwise, it will not happen during those hard times. If we are not sharing the purpose all the time, which is probably to get this done before winter, when we are dying, it's impossible.
I feel that your sense of purpose is wider than just surviving.
Yeah, of course it is in this case, but I mean that there is, at the same time, when I was using this there is this sense of urgency, actually, which also, in order to build activity, you need to have this sense of urgency. Otherwise, you're, again, like, your activity is going to somewhere else. So it's a very good to understand that there's urgency to build a shelter. and then how to keep the sense of belonging during that time when you are when you need to build those things, because other things are also important at the same time. Someone needs to find some food, or make sure that there is enough food. Someone needs to take care of just born children, and someone is getting sick and old in this community. So how do you make people feel belonging also to this sheltering project? One thing I want to mention, the first thing that I would build would be definitely a smoked sauna. Because just like I think 100 years ago, people were born and they were people were giving birth, that was done in sauna because it was hygienic, and when they died, they were washed in a sauna again. So it was kind of the full cycle. So.
Oh wow! Okay. So it's hygienic because of the heat and the essential oils, or
it's because of the heat. Heat disinfects most of the things there, and that's also that where you can use water easily because you can heat it, and so yeah.
So you're there, you build a sauna, and you need to insulate that. So can you go a bit deeper into the question of insulation? Because I think in the environment that you chose, this is a crucial aspect. And how much wood do you need, do you need to put together, and how do you put it together into something that can make me feel safe in minus, I don't know, what does it get, Celsius, 10, 20, 30 degrees? How do I stay warm inside of that just using wood?
Yeah, the old way, like when we're talking about if we want to be very self kind of like that, we are not taking anything with us, we are not taking factorized or manufactured wood with us. It has been hundreds of years the tradition to just build from the timber. So you basically our summer cottage is a timber house, and like new buildings also, they are timber house. I think Lars knows quite well what I'm meaning here. But I would say that it's just like a normal, it's probably 15 to 20 centimeters of wood, of timber that you need to kind of to insulate that part. And then in between, in old fashioned, it was how is it called? Like you can put there the natural material, like a dry natural material in between of those woods when you are putting them like this, and that's insulating also the between layers there. And they are connected. Traditionally, they were connected with the wooden. They were just like a screwed. It was screwed some holes there, and then there was wooden sticks which were hammered there in between, and that kind of kept it as a wall. So there's no actually there's nothing new to invent in those. It's to understand how the shelters were built before.
Okay. And maybe also what we learned since then. So
Yeah.
My assumption would be that you would now build it in layers,
Yeah.
more than having one piece.
So now I'm in one project involved where we are actually building emergency hospital concept from the wood. So the material cross-laminated timber, which is extremely durable. It doesn't need any insulation. It is kind of like building blocks. the similar building blocks as you can have from beton, the concrete.
Mm.
It's kind of a concrete type of material, but it's wood. And
why do you compare it? So what are um, the similarities between those? Why the comparison?
The concrete is terrible for the environment. There's no question about that. I'm comparing them because I think that this cross-laminated timber is actually, when you are building a block of flats, also like a higher buildings, it works also there as the concrete works, that you can have.
So it has also a lot of structural integrity.
Yes,
so
exactly.
you can build a lot of stuff on top of it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And everything, like when you are doing those like elements, cross-laminated timber elements, for example, when you're cutting the windows there to the element, that's wood also what you can use for the furniture or whatever. So kind of it's everything is used from that building. And I think that it's just anyways, it's the material for the future buildings, especially in challenging conditions.
Well, so my concern with using timber or wood in general for building is the question: do we have enough of it, and does it grow quickly enough to allow 10 billion people to build their shelters with it? Or would that be our collective suicide, building our houses in wood and killing all the trees?
I'm not a specialist in that. I have just a practical example from this. I think that Finland has been exporting quite a lot of wood as a paper, for example, now, or whatever in the past years. The industry is highly, and the export is highly reliant on the wood. Even if we are taking it to as a toilet paper, or as a other this, and using it as a material for many things, the Finnish forests are growing more than they are cut or harvested. So if you are doing it in a sustainable way, if you are taking care of your woods, then I don't see that as a big risk. It's incredibly still fast. How the forests are growing.
And one thing that is interesting to Norway is both how sustainable the forest is, and also one thing, how much food that there actually is in the forest. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You had a dropout in the beginning.
Okay, there's an amazing amount of food in the forest. Berries, and there's so many things that you can learn to eat from herbs, and there's a lot of natural fish, which is extremely healthy. It's an underestimated survival area. It's really beautiful, with natural foods of very best and highest quality, like blueberries and things like that. And there's enormous amounts of it.
Okay, but I totally see that. But if we go back to the shelter question, and I'll make it a bit more challenging.
It wasn't challenging at all at this.
So now we're in 2050, and several hundred of millions of people are trying to find new places to live, because the sea level has risen and they cannot live in their cities anymore, and in other regions, there's too little water, or the water, too much water at times, and it's washing away all of the soil, or all of the dirt that's actually not soil anymore. And so people need to find new places. Now, how many Finns are there at the moment?
Yeah, 5 million and 14 per square kilometer. Yeah,
So you get the picture, right? So let's add 100 million people to Finland.
That would still fit.
That would still fit, yeah. But would there be any trees left?
I think so, yes. But it would mean that we need to still have like the urban structures there, which kind of packs people more, and then use the forests and use the land to help them. But I have to say on this that the overpopulation, what we already have now in this world, that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing and biggest threat what we have, because everything comes through that. And I am sure that by creating sustainable cities or buildings or whatever, it doesn't solve that problem. It can postpone it. Sorry to jump to this, but I'm just, if and especially now when the water level rises, or if it rises, this planet just can't cope with more and more the same species animals. But this didn't answer. Sorry, I went into a wrong direction now.
So no. I mean, we said we want to try and keep on shelter for a while. Maybe that topic is already consumed. Lars pointed out that the forest is also a very, very good place for nutrition. And so we could maybe start exploring this on a wider level, and asking questions around why do you believe that we need to create cities in more dense areas? Why is it in your understanding better than distributing people in small communities throughout the land, throughout the forest, where they can build and feed themselves?
I think that because we are already so many, that's kind of the answer, which means that we need circular systems. When we are so many, the opportunity to build kind of the way of making it sustainable is to make it circular, so that everything which is coming in doesn't go out as a waste, but somehow is used there as a energy or whatever. And when you are spreading it around, when you are putting it's impossible to build that infrastructure there to use it. You could, of course, use it like a live very natural way and to try to use everything, but the wood that you need to burn in order to keep you warm, in a small scale, it's very difficult to handle the gases that it is producing, for example. But in cities, if you're heating by seawater, for example, you can do it much more sustainable way.
But let's say I've seen communities that are turning their human waste into among other things, biogas, and they have too much of it, so they actually have to burn it, because they just don't know what to do with all of that gas. So that could also be a source of heat. So you don't need to burn the wood, but you have gas to do that.
Yeah, and actually, it's possible that I'm in the old world with my thoughts now. When because we are now evaluating, we have not discussed of this before, and I have not been thinking this as probably you have. It's possible actually now that the technology enables to have this as a not centralized, but as decentralized structure. It is possible. I mean that still before. Okay, before now we need to put a little bit of time frame on this, because there has been now this time, the industrial time, where the heavy big units have been heating or producing energy or whatever. Before it was decentralized, and now we are talking of decentralizing it again, but in sustainable way. Because if we spread all these people to like a big area without doing that, that's killing the planet. I'm quite sure, because it's more efficient now to do it in a centralized environment.
But if you find a way to live in a circular fashion, in tune with nature, in a small community, and in a way that this small community can build the infrastructure themselves, then the easier and more feasible way to go is to do that, than to build entire cities in a circular fashion from scratch, or turn entire cities that are probably impossible to turn into something sustainable. Is just look at the insulation situation, and you know that unless you can harvest carbon negative energy in cold regions, you will never be able to heat all of the houses in a sustainable way. So that then turns into a requirement to rebuild that city. So now then what is more sustainable? Building small communities by the people, for the people themselves, or building cities. And in the context here, I'd like to explore more the small communities and ask more questions around. So because we've taken a saw and an axe so far. And
this has not been a very realistic from me yet. This has been more a utopian way. So if we want to be realistic,
but no, let's be both.
Yeah.
So we take a saw and an axe, or some saws and some axes, and 200 people. And as you pointed out, houses have been built in the past as well. People used to live there. Now, we can do this. Okay, so we learning from how this has been done in the past, we can now go there and build houses made of wood and that keep us warm, at least warm enough to survive a winter. Now the question is, how can we raise this in living standard, so we don't have to feel that we're living in a cave, and then, as you said, get drunk or kill ourselves. But how can we raise the living standard so it's actually a really nice place to be, while respecting the circularity of things?
Yeah.
So just two things. One question is, how do we create windows? How did people create windows in those houses 2, 3, 4, 500 years ago? And how how can we now keep these houses warm, not burning fossil fuels?
Extremely difficult question. I don't. Before there was glass, there wasn't windows. That's for sure. But the challenge is every time when building this, like a small size community there, the answer is easily for this, for example, that okay, we use solar or we use wind, but it's meaning that we are using someone we are the good people who are using this and moving the challenge to somewhere else, because someone needs to, if we are not competent enough to produce all the material for the solar panel and the exact solar panel, then we can be there so proud of ourselves that we are doing good things, but delivering the challenge to somewhere else. So if we want to really be sustainable, it means that we are not going to those solutions. And that's why it's so difficult. I mean, with the technology now, there's an extremely good, now I'm talking again, like in a bigger scale, which probably is somehow needed there. In the next island where I'm living, which is, there is a zoo close to it, and then there's one island between. It used to be a safe, like a huge safe tank to reserve oil. It's there, you can't see it, it's there under the island and so on, like in a tunnel. It has been empty for a while. There is this transition from the fossils to the others, and now it will be used. It's now under construction to be used to take the seawater there in summertime, heat the buildings with that seawater, like extracting the heat from that during the winter time, then using this water during the summer times as a cooler of the buildings to move it around. Of course, it's kind of the transition in this big scale, which is possible now to do by using the existing infrastructure and the knowledge, and actually for sure some other energy in order to pump it and whatever, but which can be made in a sustainable way without fossils. And if we want to find the way of doing that in decentralized environment, we need to find similar kind of solution when we are transiting something existing to the something else, in this case the heat. Otherwise we are making the mistake of being like just using the others. I mean,
I totally get that. I mean, we don't want to send little children into caves to find the rare earths we need to build solar panels. Right, so that's definitely not part of the solution. So an unsolved problem in shelter in cold areas is warming the place. Now, there are concepts of insulating the place to such an extent that the warmth needed is absolutely minimal. The additional heat, the burning of something is absolutely minimal. And there are people building earth ships in cold climates, which are covered in soil on three sides, and which are facing, and that's then is the next interesting problem, facing the south with a lot of glass to collect passive solar and warming by that. And they get through very cold Canadian winters with that. Needing from time to time to burn fossil fuel in a stove or in a fireplace inside, but not very much of it. And that could be potentially replaced by some other source.
Yeah. Now now the question is that how much fossils and the energy is used to build those solutions. I mean that, for example, the heat that is on the ground, which is now widely used, especially I think even more in Sweden than in Finland, which gives you all year around like the heating just by pumping the water to the ground and taking it back. But if you are doing it in a small scale, and if you are having it there, you are then using a lot of fossils in order to have that system. And I'm just worried about when you were explaining that, how much do you need to do before getting it fossil neutral?
So apparently not drilling down and not having to drill kilometers, but just having to drill roughly 50 meters gives you enough warmth to heat a place like that. But then the question is, how do you drill into the ground for 50 meters?
How do
Without
you
again,
pump? Yeah, and how do you pump?
yeah, okay, you can use human energy to pump, staying fit on your Peloton bike.
Yeah.
But so how let's assume we decide to harvest warmth from the earth by drilling down. Interesting question. How do we drill down without with only with human power? I mean, people in the Middle Ages built fountains, right? So holes in the ground to get to water. How did they do that? Because that's essentially the same thing.
I don't know, probably by human power at that time, human energy.
Or animals, right? Oh, Lars is in the car.
Yeah. Maybe the answer is explosives.
Okay, so we could harvest explosives maybe from the land. I'm pretty sure you can find phosphorus somewhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's something that could be learned. So drilling further into this, I mean, from a perspective of passive solar energy, you need glass, and also from the perspective of human survival, you need sunlight on your skin. So glass would be a preferred option compared to going outside into nature naked in minus 20 degrees. So that's always is probably, to me, one of the hardest questions. How do we get transparent materials that shelter us from the environment without exploiting? So when we just as to seed some thoughts and a discussion, maybe what if we put our ingenuity and engineering capabilities into finding ways of growing glass in a bioreactor, and not putting it into something that's like these centralized mass scale solutions.
Mm.
I mean, that ties back to the question of where do you invest your time also.
Yeah.
You as
But
a person.
but I'm not sure. Yeah, because I'm not sure still. Glass is, in my opinion, quite sustainable because it can be recycled. It's like not going anywhere if it's done properly. So just like when you need to change its existence, then you need energy to do that. But I'm not sure is the glass so bad thing.
Well, I've attempted some research on trying to make glass myself. And it turns out that to have some quality of transparency, you need very, very rare earths that you cannot find easily. Not being able to find them easily means also in turn that giving glass, sufficient amounts of glass to every human on the planet, when we're 10 billion people who want to live in a good environment, might turn out to be difficult.
That's true. Yeah.
So this is on the search of questions that aren't solvable. So you're as the lead of Shelter, you say no problem. Without Windows, we can solve this, right? We can probably even by human power drill holes that are deep enough that that give us warmth without having to burn fossil fuels in that block of wood that we're living inside of all winter. And we deliberately didn't talk about culture, which of course plays a strong part in this, and I'm totally happy to move into the culture discussion. But I want to flesh out first realistically and in a way that we could actually imagine building this. How would we do this, right? In the best, nicest possible way. And to me, it turns out that that transparent materials currently is the biggest problem. And then the question I would ask is, do we really need it? Is there some substitute? Can we use something from nature that gives us the same properties? Or do we have to do without glass unless we invent a way of producing glass-like materials locally and sustainably, recursively?
Yeah, it is. I kind of. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to imagine at the same time. I believe that somehow in a small scale, with using also the technological capabilities or something that you could take with you from the existing, you could actually make a quite nice community. And in a shelter wise, at least in a forest, there's no kind of I'm not worried about that. But to put it in a wider scale, then the challenges are coming, like you said. You need the transparent material if you want to produce something, because it can be also the source of heat. Definitely, it's a source of light. It affects your mental health. It's doing this and this and this and this, and then we are quite easily like going to those structures where you need to have more people in a same place. That's how my mind works. That you can't anymore spread them. Or is there a point of spreading it? It would work in a small scale, that you would have hundreds of those places, but would it work in a scale of millions of those? I'm not sure.
So, but we can distill from that there's a challenge that we can mm, take on as humanity, and saying, okay, we need some form of transparent glass-like material that
Yeah,
can allow
for
us
sure.
to
Someone knows how to produce it in somewhere, I think.
there is a so finding that person, scaling that up, giving everybody a glass cooker, like a bioreactor to create these type of things, that would be needed, and that would be something we would take with us from the current model of civilization if we have invented it. I know that there's a group of scientists who are working on molecular solar, which means that there's a molecule that they designed that can change its shape when it's been hit by sunlight, and then change its shape back, giving off energy. If something like this is doable, and then this could even be produced and harvested in a bioreactor, then this means that the most important thing we have to produce as a society, maybe right now, is to equip people with bioreactors and recipes to grow things that allow them to live sustainably in these kinds of communities. And until then, we either have to do without windows, or we have to just take some windows with us as we go into the nature. So I agree, on a small scale, we can do it easily and probably also beautifully. So let's go a little bit into that and look into what is the minimum material we have to take with us from the existing model to have a really nice environment. So we now designed a very dark, depressing, man-made cave, but it allows us to survive, which is important. But what do we need to make this, to turn this cave into something that we actually enjoy being in, that we would love to be in right now?
Yeah. To be a bit realistic also in this, I mean that I think that the energy that people would use in the woods to build from the timber would be so much higher than the energy that is needed for these CLT cross-laminated timber modules, that it would be better to build them in the existing factories. So with like everything. So I would definitely go still for wood. I would do that from this timber. I would bring the modules. I would make sure that I have enough walls. I have enough everything to deliver to the forest. And then I think that I would definitely go also for glass at this stage, because I think with glass you could actually have with the glass and timber, you could actually have the combination where the minimal level of heating is needed, and also during the warm times you don't need the any cooling or whatever. So it's kind of the most sustainable way to build the building is to build it properly so that it doesn't lose so much heat, and to do it so that it doesn't need too much of those insulation materials, which are usually plastic or close to that, or they are produced from somewhere. Okay, you have the natural insulation materials also. But that's probably I would definitely build a great, nice structure just with those, elements of windows and wood.
Okay, and something. So to me, the benchmark would be that you would move there with your family and your guitars, and you would like to live there.
Actually, my brother has built a house or his second house next to one river, where this this wood material has been used, which is then like a glass walls by getting the sun in, and he has the heating which is coming from the heat which is coming from the ground, and the energy that a house is using is very minimal.
Actually, describing something your brother has built already.
No, but I just, when we are taking it to this, that where would you like to live? That would you be able to live there? And would it be something that could be done?
Yeah.
Like realistically.
So that's a definite yes, because it has been done. It's there, and that means that as a homework from this conversation, I would take how much timber do we need for 10 billion people in that
That's
model?
good, yes.
How much glass do we need? And can we drill those holes? Can we drill those holes? Yeah. Can we, I don't know, take a stone and a stick and something else and then walk around that for days until we have a 50-meter hole? Is that possible? And then answer these questions. Do we have the material to in a non-exploitive fashion build for 10 billion people in that fashion? And with regards to the renewable materials, timber in that case, also posing the question, what are fast growing? What is a fast growing timber type? So can you do that same thing with hemp or bamboo?
Or eucalyptus.
Yeah, so things that grow fast, that sequester carbon, you store the carbon in your housing, which is great, and the next one can grow very easily.
Yeah, and does it still have the same insulation power, and is it
Correct.
durable? Because it's also that you don't need, for example, any paint on those, because it doesn't get molded from the outside, because it's naturally kind of hygienic in the sense that it doesn't take any mold. But I don't know, are the other wood types the same? So I just know that the faster the wood grows, it's kind of the more loose it is in many, and probably it doesn't have the same insulation power then.
I don't know, but that's another.
Me neither.
That's another piece.
The nice thing is that we are talking about the things that we don't really know any of these.
Yeah, but we can make a list. And I think there's a few very concrete questions that we can ask, especially about this. And I mean, bamboo is very heavy wood, so it must be very dense, which also means that it must be very good at insulating. But it looks like Lars.
There's an interesting thing when you walk in the mountains in Finland or in Norway. You have houses that have stood there for 200-300 years, and the wood is still perfect. It's just so hard, like steel. It's really interesting, and nobody preserved it in any ways for 200 years. And if it haven't caught humid, then it's perfectly healthy. Really interesting.
Yeah.
So we can agree that that is one of the questions: finding fast-growing wood that has these qualities.
Yeah. One thing I just need to mention is this resin. Is it resin which
Yeah.
is in the word? Because that's a kind of super material in many ways. Now this goes to a bit to a different direction, but for example, it now has been used as replacing silver and copper in those materials where you need to have how do you call them, like this self hygienic, that where the bacteria are automatically killed, so you can use resin there to produce that. And still, if you're getting if you hurt yourself and you have a scratch here, if you put a resin there, then it heals you. So
Becomes hard as well, right?
Mhm.
Has anybody tried using resin for window?
No, I was just thinking, could it be probably, yeah, at the same time I was thinking, or yeah,
Yeah, maybe.
maybe.
I'm sure nature can provide us with something. I mean, just
Could
because,
honey be an option?
yeah, I was also thinking in that direction, because that stuff can also be very durable and very hard. Yeah. Okay, so we have a bunch of questions that we have to explore here
Yeah,
and
that's
learn
true.
about.
Yeah.
Um, I'd like to now move away. I have a feeling we can build something. We need to answer a couple of questions, but we can build something beautiful that we can live in with 200 people and be very confident about that it actually is sustainable. I have a good feeling about that. But you mentioned early on, and I think this is a crucial element, culture.
Mm.
Um, let's take some time to talk about that cultural aspect. What is on your mind regarding that?
Mm. I can start this from so many point of views. Please ask a more like an exact question. What do you mean, this culture that we were talking in beginning,
So,
or?
so we're let's start with the image. We're 200 people. We're building in the Nordics, so we have a summer where we can be productive outside, and then there's a winter where we have to be inside. We have to be very clear on what needs to be achieved. We also have to have some way of surviving with each other in those winters where we are stuck inside mostly. We have to have so the first purely survival need gives us very clear responsibilities around food and shelter um, that need to be organized somehow, which is a function of culture in my view. And then on the other hand, there needs to be a layer of playfulness, learning, and regulation, social regulation, that people don't kill each other or themselves, um, and some sort of mechanism to ensure peaceful conflict resolution. So all of these three elements I would see as a part of culture. And you can pick either one of them, and we just work our way through them. Where would you start when we're looking at the cultural aspect? So if you were as the lead of shelter, you were to speak with the lead of culture, saying, okay, man, or woman, I know these, I need these things from the cultural design that you're putting into our community, so I can actually provide the shelter part in any meaningful way, giving us a good time in winter, giving us shelters in the first place.
I think that the answer, the answer from my point of view, is actually, so it's a bit like a other way around. By the most secure thing to secure the culture, secure that it's kind of starts to build and it doesn't turn to disaster, is to keep people busy, which somehow it's not correlating to my humanity, but I mean that giving work, having the purpose through work, making yourself physically tired through that, it kind of saves you from those clashes which are coming when you are thinking you have time to do those things, you have free time kind of. And so the culture, I think that one powerful way of bringing of building the culture is actually put people to work together.
Okay.
Just
does work always mean being productive, or can work also be something spending time playing, in the sense that you share thoughts, you sing, you philosophy, things like that? I mean, that also keeps you busy, but in a cerebral way, not in a physical way, but also consumes energy, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. There's no question that, but I'm just thinking that is it kind of tight enough in the sense that it is kind of coherent in the longer run. Just thinking aloud, is it like keeping us? Is it uniting people in the long run, or is it separating people?
Good point. So the need for survival and its direct consequences, meaning collecting food, farming for food, building shelter, is definitely something that's non-negotiable, and that's through that simply unites people in activity. I'm not sure that's so. There is some aspect of this which requires culture, which means how do we organize ourselves, how do we distribute responsibility, and how do we teach each other the necessary skills. But then so first of all, these things at one point will have been organized. So it's like, it's very, very urgent, but the urgency flattens after a while, right? After the fifth winter, you know how to survive a winter. And then there is a need for something else that happens.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of the only option is to make sure that there's a shared purpose also when there's not something that must be done. And now when you're taking people with the different backgrounds to move to that community, it's probably extremely difficult, and I'm quite sure actually that if those are built somehow randomly, it also means that you need to move from the community to the other to find the community where the purpose is shared. I don't otherwise you need to push people to the direction that they don't want to be. So it would be it should be very flexible. You are seeking the purpose, and the purpose is seeking for you, and you don't know in which community you are finding it actually. And it shouldn't be built so that the barriers between villages are something that you can't cross. I mean that it should not be positive thing if you are moving from a community to another, not the thing that you are somehow failing if you are not doing it in the one community. So it should encourage to find the right way of living for you.
That's an interesting thought. So I'd like to follow that. Let's say, okay, we have some protocols that include the basic cultural layer of basic agreements, understanding, skill sharing, responsibilities around pure survival. Okay, that unites people no matter what, right? But once that's solved, there's an additional function of culture, which has more to do with actively creating the purpose that then fills your life. So it's a recursive activity. And the question is, does the culture that you're in actually fulfill that for you? Which then throws you back onto yourself, and you have to ask the question, who am I? What is the culture I need to thrive? And then I can move around and maybe find the community that is closest to that kind of culture, or start a new one if there is none.
Yeah, I just think that it is important in the sense that if we are thinking about these communities in a history, I think that quite many of them have created barriers in between each other. So it has not been something that you are because then you are also transmitting knowledge. You are also affecting and understanding the culture better when people are moving from the community to community, and that could be a very valuable ingredient there in order to avoid also those future wars which will be there in between of those communities when they don't understand each other and each other's point of view and doesn't share some parts of the culture.
So if I hear you correctly, then this is actually a call for a meta culture, saying, okay, we don't know what the culture in one specific community will look like. That might even just emerge from the community. Some of them will be deeply religious, some of them will be very rationality based, some of them will be a mixture, some of them will be very artsy, etc. So the different types of, and we cannot really neither totally steer and plan for that type of culture or a culture to emerge, or that's a question? Can we? And secondly, so no, we probably cannot. So we have to have a protocol of people being able to move around, and that on a meta level now gives us the requirements to establish like a global social contract of being able to move around between communities. And you were pointing at mimetic diversification. So people take memes from one community to the next, and they learn from each other, and they find the best fitting community or build one. But also genetically, it's important.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
if like our little community, 200 people in the woods, in 100 years, there would be a scary place, right?
Only male.
Yes. So then in 100 years, it would be no place. So that's also a very crucial element. So actually, that is a very interesting way to think about culture on a more process level, saying culture emerges. We don't know what emerges and where it emerges to.
You can't control it, but you can you can help it with the process.
And you can help it with the process, but maybe one of the important help elements is that people can vote with their feet.
Yeah.
So if there's a meta culture that is open for you to leave, knowing, so things are important. So this knowledge that you then carry as a person of how do you contribute, and how do you build a community? If you feel comfortable in building a community with like-minded people, because you know how to build a house and how to farm it, or how to find people, food in the forest, then it's much easier for you to leave if you're unhappy in the culture that you're in.
Yeah, and I think that it's also it's important that it's celebrated and it's not seen as failure.
Mm-hmm.
Because often the community starts somehow to kind of support itself by these kind of not healthy ways, by saying that it's failure if you're leaving, for example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. That I imagine that could be very challenging for people to learn, letting go as a celebration. Because some people will be sad that somebody is leaving, some people will be upset that somebody is leaving. Um, so in other words, your requirements to the lead of culture would be, create a culture in which it is celebrated to go away if you feel the need to, and in which it is very welcome for other people to join, and to figure out whether they find a home here.
Mm.
And anything else in between, what actually makes that culture, whether it's religious or not, or whatever other forms it can have, emerges from the community. I think that's a very interesting thought, because that makes it very easy to manage. I mean, it's still hard, but it makes it much easier, because you allow the culture itself to grow. I like that.
Yeah, and I think that it's important in many aspects. It's also very important to avoid the problems between those communities.
Mm-hmm.
And to spread the knowledge. I think that it is, and like you said, also spread the genes.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Mm-hmm.
but it would be it's just like some supercomputer should analyze it first. That where does it end up to? I mean that does it end up to the communities where similar people are finding similar people, or does it end up to the community where actually there is also this variety of thoughts? Okay, there would be this more philosophical community where people want to explore themselves and meet new people or whatever, but for sure there would also be the hetero hunters community somewhere who are just like using the masculine power to
So that's possible, but at the same time, there remains and will remain in this model an essential need for survival, right?
yeah
Because now, in the current model of civilization, our need for survival um, is organized through the proxy of money. As long as you somehow can gather some money somewhere, and you can do this alone without not you can't do it alone, of course, but you don't need a community around you to generate money necessarily. In that environment, you're much more shielded from the reality of survival. In an environment where you are 200 people somewhere in the outback, and you need to get that fish out of the river, and you need to find these berries, then there will always be some portion of your life that is in which you are busy with that part, and that to me is the fundamental difference between the current model and then, to be much more linked with the survival of yourself and the group, which then in turn has an effect on your culture, and maybe then in turn on the homogeneity or heterogeneity of that culture. Just because you need to have a certain amount of people to survive, you might be willing to accept people who aren't in a total fit, but they teach you something new.
Yeah, that's true.
As an assumption, but that's something we will explore. In one of the next conversations we will have in this format, with a pirate and an anthropologist. So to figure out who come from this perspective. They come from the perspective of culture and seeing what their thoughts are. Yeah, to me it feels like we're for today coming to an end. That doesn't mean that there's an end to this conversation. I think we actually, I feel a responsibility to pick this conversation up again once we've learned and done our homework.
You can send me also the homework. With part of the homework, I can try to find something.
And I would really love to do this and then have another conversation to build on this and flesh this out more. I'd really love to.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that this was extremely interesting. Like I said, to talk about something unknown and something that you're not really specialized on, and still you need to think those things through. But I have to say that it can have some seeds somewhere.
Yeah,
it's possible that there is one or two seeds which kind of as an ideas are putting it forward. Just by accident, I have to say, from my point of view, it's just an accident if there is. But
so there's a couple of things that we discussed here that came up through conversation are things that are actually being done. For example, James Ehrlich from Regen Villages, they build in similar models. Their models have been thought through for years now, and they come to similar conclusions. And I try to keep these things out, so to see where we land if we don't build on the existing solutions too much. And to me, it's very uplifting that somehow we arrive at very similar points. Also, what you described with the culture aspect is something I've heard Jordan Hall and John Vervaeke discuss in this idea of how to create this culture of mimetic and genetic diversification across the globe. I think it's very interesting to see that this comes up in a conversation without that prior knowledge. So that's really, really good.
Yeah, like I said, you have studied those. I haven't been like studying anything. I haven't been really thinking this through before so much, but it's...
Yeah, but I mean, I think your introduction in this sense is very valuable because in some ways you are thinking deeply, in some ways you're thinking more laterally, and I think there is enormous value in lateral thinking in serendipitous ways that surfaces things that we haven't thought about prior. And so in that sense, conversations like this are extremely valuable. And I think even somebody who hasn't thought about how to build a community somewhere in the forest would now know where to start and how to think about it. better than before. I'm pretty sure about that. So that's a success.
One thing I want to
Yeah.
say before we stop, because this has been in my mind for a while, and I just want to kind of have it also as a food for thought when we are discussing next time. The more I think, I see that it's so much more easier to build something new than to change something that already exists, and that goes in every aspect of life or world. And I'm thinking how we could use this power of building new, not to turn something to different as a vehicle to do this. This is just the thought. I just see that the resistance of existing things to change is so big that it overcomes usually the good ideas. But when you can start, so does it mean that we need to give new names for things, for example, in order to make them happen?
Okay, that's. I mean, I was trying when you were describing this. The natural thing to look at could be an organization that is hard to change, or a city that is hard to change,
Or a habit.
or a habit, a relationship, and in all of these, there are really valuable things. And in all of these, there are things that might be worth changing. And that is, I think, one of the dilemmas we're facing is how do we know where the transition leads us? How do we know what it feels like to be in that new form of city? And what are we leaving behind? Right? It's very it would be very painful to leave something behind that you're used to, that you know that somehow worked, that you've grown up for the last decades in, and you know how it functions, and then you leave that for something that you're uncertain of, and then that turns out to be a wrong choice. So I think the strongest technology that we have as humans to do this is to play, right? To find out, just to play. What does it look like to do what your brother does and just build that house and then see, right? How do we create these playgrounds for the future, so that people can explore whether that's actually something they want to do?
We can find, you can, I'm when we have an opportunity, I invite you and your 25 friends, and I can take 25 friends around, and we can go to some empty town in Finland where we can have the accommodations and stay there for a month or two. That's the trial period. So
cool. Yeah, let's do that. So I have to find 25 friends.
Yeah. Oh, 25 people.
No, 25 friends is good. I like that.
Hey, thank you so much. This was interesting.
Thank you.
It's great to chat with you, and I apologize everyone who is viewing this, that I was talking about the things that I really don't know anything about, just my experience.
Don't apologize. We're all exploring on the edge of the possible. Nobody knows, and that's why we're pirates, right?
Yeah, that's true. Hey, thank you so much, and thank you, Lars.
Thank you.
Where are you driving?
You're muted. You're muted. Lars, you're muted.
Lars, you're muted.
Can I unmute you so you don't have an accident?
I'm driving in nature, forest all over, to fetch my daughter, which is horseback riding.
Ah, nice.
Great.
But there were some really great things in here. This about principle, and I have the one interesting question coming up today is that this is basically all about building communities where we nurture the positive side of human nature, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm influenced by reading this book, Humankind. But it seems really like we humans have an enormous potential for doing good when we are in not hierarchical structures and where we have closeness to each other. So the question underlining all of this is how do we build that positive effect and on the positive sides of human nature? Then we lose in big hierarchies where it's certain type of leaders that often come forward, right? Interesting. But a lot of a whole library of interesting thoughts just listening to you. It was great. Thanks.
Yeah, homework is coming. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, both of you, and see you next time around.